These two things are very often confused. People think that in order to have power behind what they say, behind their speaking, they need to be loud and boisterous all the time. Other people, however, feel like they could never raise their voice above a whisper almost. They always speak low and soft, and it's always almost a strain to hear them. And then, in normal conversation, most of us find some sort of middle ground where we feel comfortable and where we feel like we are heard and we can hear the other person. But volume is only one little aspect of all the different dimensions that our voices can take on, that can elevate our speaking from just being something pleasurable to being something that draws people in and that gets them to lean in at the right moments, and that turns our speaking, our presentations, our interviews, anything that we're doing where we're communicating with someone else, turns them from something basic and average to something powerful with a lot of strength behind it, and that makes it memorable for the person listening. So today on Sincerely Speaking, I want to share with you some speaking voice tips. 5 things to look for to make sure that you use your voice, use your instrument in the most powerful way possible. Speak up, because I bet you somebody needs to hear it. The fun thing about talking about the 5 distinctions or the 5 elements that we can use to modulate our voice and to use our voice in the most powerful way is that if you ask the average person, and actually just think about it for a second right now, if I asked you what are the different dimensions or the different elements of your voice that you can manipulate and alter and control in order to make your voice and your presentation more effective, what would you say? Most people only think of volume and pitch, volume and tone, right? And some who have given a presentation or who are more accustomed to this world might even add to that the pace, the speed at which you speak. And those are 3 of the things that we're going to be talking about today. But I'm going to add 2 that when you really understand these, when you really hone in how to use them most effectively, then they're going to elevate whatever it is that you're doing with your voice, whether it is a presentation, whether it is conducting an interview or being interviewed, whether it is recording a video, whatever it is that you're doing, understanding these 2 things that I'm going to share with you at the end and that most people are unaware of is going to elevate your presentation, your speaking to the next level. So stay till the end so you don't miss those 2. Are we ready? So let's talk about the obvious ones, the ones that most people know and refer to and talk about when you ask them about how to use their voice. And by the way, the 5 things I'm going to give you are going to be 5 P's. So they're going to be really easy to remember. And the first P is power. And what I mean by power is your volume, right? So we tend to think about louder voices as being more powerful and softer voices as being less powerful. In fact, we tend to use terms like active, strength, voice in those voices that elevate their volume, that are speaking at a louder level. The truth of the matter is that if we stay at the high volume all the time, we are going to force people to tune us out at certain moments. Let me give you, for instance, I don't know where you grew up or the environment that you were used to when you were growing up, but there are families in which everybody yells. And if nobody's yelling, nobody's listening, right? They have to yell in order to hear each other. But there comes a moment in which that elevated volume is so uncomfortable that people start tuning each other out. Another great example for me is I grew up with these very charismatic, very powerful evangelists. But some of them thought that if they weren't yelling the whole time, they weren't being powerful enough. But there came a time when my poor little ears couldn't hear all that yelling anymore. So I would tune them out in order to rest for a minute, in order to put myself in a position where I could hear further, where I could really listen. So when you are thinking about volume, think about the fact that, yes, there are things that you want to emphasize that you should elevate your volume when you are saying them. So Speak louder when it is something that you really want them to hear at the moment. Speak louder when you're adding passion behind it. And we're going to talk more about that in a minute. But there are also moments in which lowering your volume can do wonders in having people pay closer attention. So if you are modulating your volume and you're higher when you're passionate, you're at a neutral level when you are just sharing basic information. And then when you really want them to lean in, you speak softer. You speak at a lower volume. You are causing people to pay more attention, to really lean in. And instinctively, we tend to pay closer attention because we understand that something is important is being said when we're being soft and quiet, right? So use your volume in that way, modulate it. Understand that higher volume means more passion, but lower volume can cause your audience to lean in and to really pay attention to the important nuanced things that you're saying at that moment, right? So that's P for power. That's the first one. The second one is pitch, and we talked about that before. Pitch is the tone of your voice. So you can go up, and I'm exaggerating, obviously, or you can go down, right? And obviously, there are moments in which you raise your pitch just because you're excited or emotional, or you raise your pitch because it's part of what you're trying to emphasize. And then there's moments in which you go low because it's sad or it's serious. There's moments in which you go low because it's a more intimate expression or information that you're looking to share. So use that pitch to help you accentuate what you want, but be careful because if you are monotone, people are going to tune you out. If you are too high pitched, people are going to start hurting. It's going to become difficult to listen to you. But if you're too low, then it becomes hard to understand. The lower frequencies are harder to understand and harder to hear by just the way the vocal system works. If you're operating or speaking at a lower tone of voice, your volume is going to go down typically as well. So be mindful of those things. But manipulate your pitch and try to make it look like sound waves, right? You see sound waves go up and go down. That's what we want to create when we are speaking when it comes to pitch and tonality, right? So that is the second P, pitch. Now, the third P that most people are aware of is pace, the rhythm at which you speak. Are you speaking really, really quickly? Are you speaking really softly? Are you staying at a neutral kind of normal level, if you will? So again, with everything that we're going to talk about today, we get to create a balance and modulation with it. What I mean by that is we don't want to spend too much time at any one level of these things, but we also want to integrate bits and pieces of it. We want to make sure that we're deliberate in how we use these things. And especially when it comes to pace and rhythm, it's really important that we modulate and use different speeds throughout. So we want to integrate and use all the different levels at different times for specific deliberate reasons. So when it comes to speed, when you're speeding through something, when you're speaking really quickly, that usually means that you're being really emotional and passionate about it, right? And that's a good thing. But if you operate at this really rapid speed all the time, then the words get mumbled, right? The words just all clump together. Plus, it's hard to follow after a little bit. If you think back, and I'm gonna date myself, there were ads when I was little, or younger, for micro machines, which were these tiny little cars, toy cars. And the micro machine man spoke really, really quickly. And it was fun to listen to for 30 seconds. But past that, it just became hard to follow and it became noise rather than voice, right? It became just this noise that was in the background that you couldn't really pay close attention to. So you want to have those moments when you're speaking a little bit faster than your natural rate, but you also want those moments in which you deliberately slow down whatever it is that you're saying and the way that you're saying it. And the reason you want to slow down is because when you do, that accentuates whatever you're saying. And people are going to understand that that means that you're saying something that you don't want them to miss, that they need to pay close attention to. And they're going to, again, lean in and listen closely. So far, We have the three P's that most people know about. Well, power, which is volume. We have pitch, which is your tonality, and we have pace, which is the rhythm or speed at which you speak. But the two that most people don't think about, at least not when it comes to their voice and their inflection, are pause and passion. Pause and passion. Now, you might say, or you might think, well, wait a minute, pause has to do with your speed. The speed is regulated by the pauses you bring in, but I wanted to think about it a little bit further. If you think about a piece of music, if you think about a symphony, or just your favorite piece of music, it doesn't have to be anything elaborate. If there weren't any pauses in the music, in the lyrics, in the way that the words are built and presented, then it would become this difficult concoction, cacophony of sounds, just building one on top of the other. The pauses are what make the melody. The pauses are what make the sound come through in the way that the artist intended it to. Likewise, when we use our vocal instrument, if we don't have deliberate pauses in what we're saying, then we are just putting words together that just blend into one another and don't communicate what we intended to communicate. So it's important to practice adding pauses in. Here's the other thing with pauses that very few people know. If we use pauses to deliberately breathe, then we are adding two things and eliminating two things. What we are adding is intention, and we are adding drama to whatever it is that we're saying. So intention and drama when we pause and breathe, because people are waiting to see what comes after that pause. And it doesn't have to be a large one, but every time you pause and breathe, you add those two things. You add intention to what you're saying. People are going to be like, oh, what's coming next is probably really important. And you're adding drama, not in the dramatic like sort of way that we tend to think about, but you're adding drama in the sense that you are adding to it that deliberate pause that causes people to go, I wonder. I wonder why. I wonder what's coming next. And it keeps them guessing and it keeps them tuned in, right? And what you take away when you pause and you breathe are your fillers and your non-words. What do I mean by that? Fillers are the ums and the ahs that come when our brain and our mouth are not operating at the same speed. So when we stop and breathe, we're giving our brain and our mouth a chance to catch up with each other so that what comes out of our mouth is what our brain wants us to express and communicate. If you notice people who are very articulate, who are good orators, you're going to notice that they pause at very deliberate times and that their ums and their ahs are almost non-existent. It might still happen every once in a while, but they're almost non-existent because they use those pauses and those breaths to give their brain a chance to communicate to their mouth, okay, this is what should come out of you next, right? So that is the very first thing that we eliminate. And the other one are the non-words. So by non-words, I mean all those filler words that are not really adding anything to your communication. If you notice, most people use like way too often, way too randomly, and not in ways that add anything to the communication. So they would say things like I went to the park and like it was really hot and like get my drift. Therefore, when we breathe, when we take a pause, we give again our brain our chance to see, is that word really necessary there? Should it be included? Should it not? And we all have certain words that we gravitate to. All of us. I say so in most of my transitions. And I say right at times when it's just to buy me some time, right? Like I did just now. But all of us get to be more deliberate in the words that we use when we take the time to pause and breathe. And that makes us appear more eloquent. That makes us appear better prepared. That allows us to appear more poised. And even in and especially during situations when we feel uncertain, where we feel like we might not be confident enough in what we're expressing, where we maybe were blindsided by a question that we weren't prepared for, or are not entirely sure how to transition from one idea to the next. Pausing and breathing will allow us to think about what comes out of our mouth next and allow us to appear more confident, more poised, and more eloquent, even in those situations when we might not be as sure about what we should be saying next. And finally, passion is the one that most people don't connect to your voice, but it's what will elevate your presentation, your speech, whatever it is that you are delivering, to an ulterior level that most people never reach. But here's the trick. Even though we're talking about voice, in order to express your voice effectively, your emotion effectively through your voice is what I should have said, you get to use your body. You get to have your body support that emotion. If you notice, most great orators, most great speakers, most people who are very polished in their presentations and their communication, they use their body in a way that seems different to the way other people do. And that is because they use their body to help with their emotion. If you think about when you are going through something that is emotional, when you're experiencing something that is charged with positive or negative emotions, it doesn't matter. It's charged with emotion. You feel it in your body. And if you use that part of your body to help you express that emotion, it comes out more readily and more perceptibly. And therefore, we get to do that. So if you're angry, use your body. If you are in love and you're excited, use your body. Whatever emotion it is that ties in with what you're expressing, what you're saying, whether it is conviction, whether it is fear, whether it is anger, whether it is just being excited, whatever emotion it is that you're trying to express, think about where in your body do you feel it? How do you experience it in the body? And how can you transfer that emotion in your body, that sensation in your body, to help you use your voice in a way that communicates that passion as well, that emotion. And that is when you're going to start experiencing that people not just buy into what you're saying, but say things like, "Ooh, I almost felt like I was there with you. I felt everything, every emotion that you were communicating, I felt it. I was going on that journey or on that ride with you," because you're able to draw them in a new, powerful, very special way that they will never forget. So just to recap, the 5 P's that are going to help us use our voice, our instrument, when we're speaking in the most powerful and effective way are power, which has to do with volume, pitch, which is related to your tone, pace, which has to do with the rhythm and the speed at which you speak. And then the 2 that most people ignore are pauses, which has to do with breathing and adding more of that calmness and that centeredness to your speech. And then finally, passion, which has to do with your emotions, and you get to invite your body to play with you when you are adding your passion to your voice. All right. So I hope this has been helpful. If it has, please share it with someone that you love. And in the meantime, make sure to connect with me on social media. I'm mostly on Instagram at marcy.amaro. So I hope to see you around, and I will see you next time right here on Sincerely Speaking. Have a great rest of your week.